In today's episode of the Conjugal Motivation Podcast, we're diving into an issue that affects so many bright kids as they navigate adulthood. This audio recording includes subtitles allowing you to engage with the material more thoughtfully and at your own pace. So, why do many gifted children grow up feeling stuck, isolated, and profoundly alone? They were meant to excel, often recognized for their talents and encouraged with the idea that they would achieve great things. However, along the way, that initial promise morphed into overwhelming pressure, and the validation they received became a source of entrapment. As adults, many of these former standout children now find themselves grappling with the lack of motivation, feeling socially behind, struggling to initiate tasks, follow through, or forge connections. And the most unsettling part, they may not even understand why they think this way. From an outsider's perspective, everything appears fine. They are still bright, still capable, but internally, there's a pervasive sense of alienation, like they are mere spectators in the lives of others, watching from the sidelines as life unfolds. And it turns out there's a deeper reason for that. Many bright children often end up forming their entire identity around their intelligence. As a result, the very characteristic that made them feel unique during their childhood can morph into something that constrains them in adulthood. So let's explore the reasons behind this phenomenon and, even more crucially, how we can begin to dismantle it. Remember, this isn't about labeling anyone as a failure. It's about recognizing a survival strategy that has ceased to serve its purpose. And if you can reflect on your journey, you'll find a pathway forward. When we're young, our sense of self is often quite simplistic. Kids tend to cling to one or two traits and shape their identity around those aspects. For instance, a child might define themselves as someone who adores Pokemon or constantly craves chicken nuggets. This approach might seem one-dimensional, but it's flawlessly typical. It's how identities initially form, straightforward, grounded in interests or labels. One of the most impactful labels a child can receive is, "You're smart." That phrase resonates deeply. It gets reinforced by everyone around them, teachers, parents, friends. It becomes an integral part of your self-perception. Initially, it feels incredible. Being recognized as smart brings you praise and attention, almost giving you a sense of sailing through life effortlessly. You find that you don't need to study as rigorously as your peers. You grasp concepts quickly, and you naturally stand out from the crowd. However, here's the hidden price of that praise. When you're lauded for your intelligence, what people are often truly celebrating is not your effort, but rather your effortless success. You receive acclaim when you solve a problem in a flash, score an A without much effort, or grasp an idea at first glance. Over time, this builds a perilous mindset. If I'm smart, everything should come easily to me. This belief can quietly lead to significant challenges as you grow older. Because when things become difficult, when you encounter struggles, experience failures, or don't comprehend something immediately, it doesn't merely feel like a common hurdle. It becomes a direct threat to your identity. You start asking yourself, if I'm meant to be smart, why am I finding this hard? When faced with challenges, you might find yourself avoiding them altogether. You hesitate to raise your hand unless you're almost sure of the answer. You steer clear of games unless victory feels guaranteed. You shy away from pursuing passions that could reveal vulnerabilities about your intelligence. And little by little, your world becomes smaller. You confine yourself to what you know you can do well, retreating to familiar grounds. You prioritize maintaining your image as the perfect smart kid over exploring new opportunities. And therein lies the danger. While others are out there experimenting, learning, failing, and ultimately growing, you remain trapped in a contracting comfort zone. The longer this continues, the more daunting it becomes to step outside. Eventually, you may realize that you've constructed your entire self-image on something that now seems precarious. You believe you can't afford to stumble. Fears of looking foolish loom large. You feel compelled to safeguard the identity you've created for yourself, leading to stagnation. This is when feelings of isolation begin to creep in. Growth is closely tied to connection, and when you stop evolving, you inadvertently stop connecting with others. Consider this. Real connection is forged through shared experiences, like being part of a team, navigating awkward moments together, or working hard toward a common goal. If you withdraw from these experiences, you miss out on the very moments that foster true friendships. You might skip joining a club out of fear of failure. You might try a new sport because it feels alien. You could sidestep group projects simply due to frustration. Unbeknownst to you, this choice pulls you further away from the natural ebb and flow of social life. But you still yearn for connection, don't you? So, what's the next step? You naturally lean on your greatest asset, your intelligence. You focus on understanding others rather than truly relating to them. You analyze their behavior, observe their reactions, and run various scenarios in your mind. This leads to a phenomenon known as cognitive empathy, where you logically grasp what others might be feeling, yet you don't emotionally engage with them. While this approach may seem adequate for some time, it has its limits. You can manage conversations, keep up socially, and even come across as charismatic on the surface. However, deep down, you're worn out. Instead of simply enjoying the company of others, you're stuck in a state of constant calculation, thinking through what to say next, how to respond, and guessing what others might be thinking. Consequently, socializing transforms into something you feel you need to master. To avoid perceived failures in social settings, you find yourself shying away from them. This is where the loneliness truly deepens. But you are smart. You should be able to solve this puzzle. So, you apply logic to emotional dilemmas. You attempt to mend your self-esteem through rational thought. You jot down arguments to convince yourself that you're fine. You dissect your own behaviors endlessly. Yet, none of this leads to healing. After all, intelligence wasn't designed to mend emotional wounds. It serves to address external challenges. When you try to use it to cultivate inner peace, it merely creates a loop, because there's no logical answer to the profound question, am I enough? That inquiry can only be addressed on an emotional level. Unfortunately, for many bright minds, emotional growth is often neglected. And when emotional pain sharpens, when that unbearable loneliness creeps in, that's when the ego kicks in and erects a final line of defense. You rationalize, saying to yourself, I'm just different from others. My lack of connection stems from their ignorance. I'm too profound for superficial friendships. In this way, instead of acknowledging your loneliness, you convince yourself that you're superior, not because you genuinely believe it, but because it feels less painful than admitting you feel isolated. This behavior, recognized as defensive arrogance, can be one of the most isolating patterns you could find yourself in. It builds a barrier between you and those around you. Even when the desire for connection arises, this wall prevents you from reaching out. Remember, connection demands humility, presence, and the willingness to be seen and vulnerable. How do we approach this challenge? The very first step, and it's essential, is to release the label of the smart kid. It's necessary to let go of that identity, not because being intelligent is inherently wrong, but because tying your self-worth to it can be harmful. When your sense of value hinges on how easily you succeed, you'll naturally find yourself dodging effort, shying away from failure, and avoiding any circumstances that could expose you to anything less than extraordinary. In doing so, you might unintentionally sabotage your own growth to maintain that facade. Unfortunately, that facade will eventually crumble. The key to improvement is to cultivate a new identity, one that centers around your willingness to grow rather than just being smart. Shift your focus from asking, "What will make me appear intelligent?" to "What will truly help me advance?" Start prioritizing growth over pride and embrace discomfort instead. Allow yourself to try new things even if you're not good at them initially. Show up not just to win, but to experience and learn. Sure, it may feel awkward and uncomfortable, like taking a step back, but in reality, this is a significant leap toward becoming whole. Your old identity suggested that your worth was rooted in being exceptional. However, this new perspective emphasizes that your value lies in being human. And being human means you have the right to feel uncertain, to progress gradually, and to sometimes feel lost. It's okay to not have all the answers. What truly matters is taking action anyway. Not flawless action, not clever action, but rather genuine, imperfect human steps forward. If you find yourself feeling stuck, numb, or disconnected, if you've devoted your life to being the most intelligent person in the room and now feel adrift, this is your starting point. Let go of that tight grip on that narrative. Stop striving to impress others and begin the journey towards authenticity. Remember, you don't need to be the most intelligent person in the room to truly belong. You have to be ready to engage even when it feels challenging, messy, or unfamiliar. If you can manage to let go of that version of yourself that insists on being above it all, you're about to experience something extraordinary: connection. Not because you've earned it or deserved it, but because you've chosen to step down from that pedestal and engage with the world where everyone else resides. And guess what? That world is actually quite fulfilling. It's the only place where you can truly be acknowledged for who you are. Moreover, it's where you can genuinely feel at home. So as any of this resonates with you, if you see yourself in these patterns, or if something clicked that you struggled to articulate, please share your thoughts in the comments. You're likely not alone in these feelings. Remember, identifying the pattern can be the crucial first step toward breaking free from it. Thanks for tuning in to the Conjugal Motivation Podcast. Take good care of your mental well-being, and I look forward to our following conversation.